Most cities were designed around the assumption that your time doesn't matter. Japan was designed around the opposite assumption. The result is 12 specific systems built into streets, stations, bathrooms, and stores that remove the small invisible frictions most people have just accepted as part of daily life. Not luxury features, not novelty. Actual engineering decisions that treat public space like a product with a user. When you see the full list, the thing that hits hardest isn't any single item. It's that all 12 of them already exist and most of the world just hasn't copied them. Before we continue, hit subscribe so you never miss the latest updates. Number 1, heated toilet seats with bidet functions. You walk into a public restroom in Tokyo and the toilet seat is warm. Not accidentally warm, not broken heater warm, but deliberately, precisely warm. Because someone at some point looked at a cold toilet seat and decided that was a problem worth engineering away. Most of the world treats a toilet as a fixed object, something that gets installed and never reconsidered. Japan treated it as a product with a user, and then spent decades iterating on it, the way phone companies iterate on phones. The seat temperature is adjustable, the bidet function replaces toilet paper almost entirely, and many units include a built-in dryer, a deodorizer, and a lid that opens automatically when you walk in. Roughly 80% of Japanese households have a washlet-style toilet. In most other countries, that number sits under 5%. And the gap isn't about the technology being unavailable, it's about whether anyone decided bathroom hygiene was a design problem worth solving. A cold toilet seat is a small thing, but it's a signal that the room wasn't designed with you in mind. Japan caught that signal early, and the fix costs less than most bathroom renovations. Number 2, trains that arrive almost exactly on time. In most cities, a train schedule is a suggestion. You check the app, it says 4 minutes, and you immediately start doing the mental math on how late you'll be if it's actually 9 minutes, because it's usually 9 minutes. On Japan's Shinkansen, the average delay per train runs around 36 seconds per year. Not per trip, per year averaged across every single run. When a train departed 25 seconds early in 2017, the rail operator issued a formal public apology because leaving before the scheduled time counts as a failure under the same standard as arriving late. That precision isn't a cultural attitude, it's an engineering outcome. Tracks run on tight inspection cycles. Staff communicate through standardized protocols, and turnaround at terminal stations runs on choreographed routines where every crew member has a fixed role and a fixed time window, including the cleaning crew, who clear and reset an entire Shinkansen car in under 7 minutes. Tokyo's network moves around 40 million passengers a day across multiple operators, and a delay on one line triggers automatic schedule adjustments across connecting lines. When a system is genuinely that reliable, you stop building buffer time into your day, and that's not a small thing. Number 3, Suica and Pasmo cards for transit and shopping. The Suica card starts as a train pass. You tap it at the gate opens, you get on. That part exists in a lot of cities. What's different is what happens when you get off. You can use the same card to buy a coffee from a vending machine on the platform, pay for groceries at a convenience store, rent a station locker, and buy lunch at a restaurant, all without touching a wallet or opening a phone. The card stores your balance directly on the chip, so it processes instantly and works even underground where there's no network connection. Suica launched in 2001, and together with Pasmo, which followed in 2007, they built a contactless payment system that covered transit and retail at the same time, years before most Western cities had reliable tap-to-pay on trains alone. The friction of switching payment methods is something most people don't consciously notice until it's gone. You're moving, you exit a station, you want a drink, and suddenly you have to stop and dig for a different card, or open a different app. Suica removes that completely by treating the station and the street as one continuous payment environment. Number 4, convenience stores that handle bills, tickets, and banking. A Japanese convenience store called a konbini is open 24 hours and sells food. But describing it as a food store is like describing a post office as a place that sells envelopes. At a Family Mart or Lawson, you can pay your electricity bill, your city taxes, and your parking tickets. You can buy concert tickets and print the barcodes on the spot, send or receive a package, withdraw cash from an ATM at 3 a.m. with no foreign transaction fee, and do all of this at a store that also sells a surprisingly good egg salad sandwich. The bill payment system works because the konbini acts as a licensed payment agent for utility companies, government offices, and event venues. You bring a printed slip or a QR code, pay at the counter or the in-store kiosk, and walk out with a receipt that counts as official proof of payment. No account login, no waiting on hold, no banking hours. Japan has roughly 55,000 convenience stores, about one for every 2,300 people, so the konbini functions as distributed civic infrastructure, a physical node where government services, financial services, and retail overlap completely. Access to basic services doesn't require a bank branch or government office, just a short walk. Number 5, public restroom privacy sound machines. There's a specific anxiety that comes with using a public restroom in a quiet place, an office, a library, a restaurant, where the tables sit close to the bathroom door. Japan built a device to solve it. The Otohime, which translates to sound princess, is a small electronic unit mounted inside bathroom stalls that plays the sound of a flushing toilet on demand. You press a button, it plays the sound, it loops for as long as you need it, and stops when you press again. Before the Otohime existed, people in Japan would flush the actual toilet repeatedly just to generate masking noise, which wasted several liters of water per visit. So the device solved two problems at once. It gave people acoustic privacy and stopped the water waste that the privacy-seeking behavior caused in the first place. Most countries haven't built one because the problem it solves doesn't show up on any list of urgent infrastructure needs. Nobody files a complaint about restroom anxiety. It's invisible discomfort, the kind that just gets absorbed into daily life as normal. Japan decided it wasn't normal, treated embarrassment as a real design constraint, and built something that fits in your hand to fix it. Number 6. Takuhaiben luggage forwarding services. Picture arriving at a Tokyo airport with 2 large suitcases and a full day of sightseeing ahead. In most countries, those bags go everywhere with you, onto the train, up the escalator, through the crowded station, into the hotel lobby. In Japan, you drop them at a counter, fill out a slip, pay a small fee per bag, and they arrive at your hotel before dinner. The service is called Takuhaiben, and it runs on Japan's parcel delivery network, the same infrastructure that handles millions of home deliveries every day. So the routing is already optimized and the volume keeps costs low. You can also forward bags between hotels when you're moving cities, so you check out of your Kyoto hotel, send your bags directly to your Osaka hotel, and ride the Shinkansen with nothing but a day pack. Luggage shapes where you go and what you skip. Heavy bags mean you avoid the temple on the hill, take a taxi instead of the train, head back to the hotel earlier than you wanted. Takuhaiben removes that entirely. Your bags need to get from point A to point B, and so do you, but those 2 trips don't have to happen at the same time. Number 7, coin lockers available throughout cities. Japanese train stations don't tuck coin lockers into one corner near a side exit. They're spread across multiple floors near every major entrance, in sizes that run from small enough for a laptop bag up to large enough for a full-size suitcase. Most cities treat luggage storage as a niche service you have to hunt down, pay a premium for, and hope is open when you need it. Japan treats it as standard station infrastructure, the same way a station has bathrooms and ticket machines. Pricing runs flat per day rather than per hour, and at major stations the lockers stay available around the clock. A lot of the lockers also work with the Suiga card, so you tap to lock, tap to unlock, and the charge comes off your card balance without needing coins at all. At the busiest stations, a real-time availability map shows you which banks of lockers still have open units before you walk over. The practical effect is that your bags stop controlling your day. You arrive in the morning, drop everything, explore freely, and pick up your bags before your evening train. No hotel check-in required, no taxi detour, no suitcase dragging through a crowded market street. Number 8. Vending machines with hot and cold drinks everywhere. Japan has about 4 million vending machines, roughly 1 for every 30 people, and they're not clustered in convenience store entrances or airport terminals. They're on hiking trails, in hospital corridors, on quiet residential street corners, in places where opening a staffed store would never make financial sense. A single machine splits into 2 internal sections, one refrigerated, one heated, so you can pull a hot can of coffee out of the same unit that's keeping a cold sports drink at 5 degrees. Hot corn soup, hot green tea, hot canned coffee at 2 a.m. with no cashier, no line, no minimum purchase. Low crime rates make the economics work. A machine sitting on a Tokyo street corner isn't getting broken into, so operators can put expensive equipment anywhere without worrying about it walking off. The product mix also shifts with the seasons. The same machine that stocked heavy with cold drinks in August flips to mostly hot drinks by November, sometimes with the exact same products, just switching temperature category based on time of year. Once you've lived somewhere with that kind of density, a street corner without one just feels like something's missing. Number 9, train platform queue markings everyone follows. At most platforms around the world, boarding a train is a scramble. The doors open, people trying to get off collide with people trying to get on, and everyone loses a few seconds and a little patience. Japanese platforms have markings painted or tiled directly into the floor that show exactly where each train door will stop. Passengers line up in 2 columns behind those marks before the train even pulls in. So when the doors open, the people getting off walk straight out through the middle, and the people getting on move in from the sides. The whole exchange takes seconds. The markings account for different train configurations too, so a 10-car train has different door positions than an 8-car train, and the platform marks reflect that. At busy stations served by multiple lines, the marks are color-coded or numbered, so you're always queuing for the right train. No announcements tell you to do this. No staff enforce it. The marks just make lining up the obvious thing to do, because standing on the mark puts you first through the door. Faster boarding means shorter stops, and shorter stops are part of how the trains stay on schedule in the first place. Number 10. Plastic food displays showing meals exactly as served. Outside almost every restaurant in Japan, there's a display case filled with plastic models of the dishes on the menu, sized accurately, detailed enough that you can see the individual sesame seeds on the ramen, the exact curl of a shrimp, the precise color of a broth. These models are called shokuhin sanparu, and they've been in use since the 1920s. A single model can take hours to produce and cost hundreds of dollars, so a full display case represents a real investment. Restaurants make that investment because the models directly affect whether someone walking past decides to come in. A written menu description tells you almost nothing about what you're actually going to get. A 3-dimensional model at eye level tells you the portion size, what's in it, and what it looks like before you've committed to anything. That removes the uncertainty that sends people walking past to somewhere they already know. For anyone who doesn't read Japanese, the models also solve the ordering problem completely. You walk in, point at what you want, and that's it. No language exchange needed. No guessing. No pointing at a blurry photo on a laminated card. Number 11. Tactile paving built into sidewalks and stations. If you've been to Japan, you've walked over these without thinking about them. Yellow textured strips built into the floors of train stations, sidewalks, and public buildings, running in lines along walking paths and forming dotted clusters near stairs and platform edges. They're called tenji blocks, and they work as a 2-part language. Raised parallel lines mean walk this way. Raised dots mean stop. There's a hazard ahead. A person using a white cane can read the entire system through the soles of their feet, navigating a busy station without seeing any of it. The first strips went down in 1967, near a school for the blind in Okayama, and the design spread city by city until it got standardized nationally. The ISO eventually adopted the same 2-texture system as an international standard. What's interesting is how many sighted people use them too, following the lines through an unfamiliar station, tracking them toward an exit without checking a sign. A feature built for one specific user ends up making the space more readable for everyone. The station environment layers these strips alongside platform barriers, queue markings, and audio announcements, so no single system carries the full load. Number 12. Parcel redelivery systems that let you choose the delivery time. In most countries, package delivery works like this. The driver comes when the driver comes, you're either home or you're not, and if you're not, you get a slip that says try again tomorrow. Japan built something different. Japanese parcel carriers let you pick a 2-hour delivery window when you place the order, and drivers build their routes around those windows as fixed stops, not loose targets. A driver covering a dense urban neighborhood can hit far more addresses per hour than a driver spread across suburbs, so the narrow windows actually work without destroying the economics. If you miss the first attempt anyway, you reschedule through an online portal, a phone call, or by scanning a QR code on the missed delivery slip. No hold music, no multi-day wait. The system did produce one odd side effect. Because rescheduling got so easy, people started booking deliveries to apartments they knew they'd be out of, planning from the start to redirect the package. Carriers responded by pushing harder for first attempt success and by plugging convenience stores into the network as pickup points, so you can redirect a package to a nearby 7-Eleven or Family Mart and collect it at midnight if that's when it suits you. None of these took a moonshot technology to build. A warm toilet seat is a heating element and a nozzle. Platform cue marks are paint. Tactile paving is a textured tile. Luggage forwarding is just a parcel network with a different drop-off point. What connects all of them is a decision someone made to treat a small daily friction as a problem worth fixing, rather than something people should just absorb. That decision, repeated across decades and across every layer of public and private infrastructure, adds up to a society where getting through a normal day takes noticeably less out of you. Other cities could build every single one of these. The technology isn't the barrier. That's it for today. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more updates you won't want to miss.